Hi, this is Alex from devstories.eu. Deep Agents, Episode 16 of 16. You ask your agent for a massive codebase refactor, and the chat interface immediately freezes. You are stuck staring at a spinning wheel for 20 minutes, unable to ask questions or change your mind. To fix this, you need background workers with async subagents. Standard subagents are synchronous. They block the main thread. The supervisor hands off a task and simply waits until it finishes. Async subagents change this dynamic entirely by running as non-blocking background workers. When the supervisor assigns work, it does not wait for the result. It immediately receives a job ID and returns control to the user. The user interface remains responsive while the heavy lifting happens elsewhere. You configure these background workers using the Async Subagent specification. When you deploy your application to Langsmith deployments, these async subagents are hosted independently. The main supervisor communicates with them over standard transport protocols. If the worker lives on a separate remote server, the supervisor connects to it over HTTP. To orchestrate these remote workers, the supervisor is equipped with a specific suite of async tools. Think back to that codebase refactor request. The user asks for the rewrite, the supervisor decides this will take a long time, and calls the Start Async Task tool. This tool kicks off the coder subagent and hands the supervisor a job ID. The supervisor replies to the user confirming the background job is running. Because the main thread is free, the user can continue the conversation. A few minutes later, the user might ask how the refactor is going. The supervisor calls the Check Async Task tool, passing the job ID, and retrieves the current execution status from the worker. Here is the key insight. The user is not locked out of the process while the worker runs. If the user suddenly realizes they need the refactor to enforce strict type hinting, they can just tell the supervisor. The supervisor then calls the Update Async Task tool. This pushes new mid-flight steering instructions directly to the running subagent without restarting the job from scratch. If the user decides the refactor was a bad idea entirely, the supervisor uses the Cancel Async Task tool to cleanly terminate the background process. A common point of confusion is how the supervisor remembers these jobs during a long session. Over time, chat histories get compacted to save context tokens. If the job ID only existed as text in the conversation history, the supervisor would eventually forget it and lose track of the worker. To prevent this, task metadata is never stored just in the chat log. It is saved in a dedicated state channel called async tasks. This state channel operates independently from the message list, guaranteeing that active job IDs survive any conversation compaction. Moving from blocking calls to background workers shifts your architecture from a simple chat interface to a parallel orchestration engine capable of handling massive workloads. Since this wraps up our current series, I encourage you to read the official documentation, try deploying an async worker yourself, or visit devstories.eu to suggest topics for our next run. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me. Until next time, take it easy.